Welcome to our channel. I hope you enjoy your time here and find a little peace in the stories we share. If you like this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I woke up in a new life as the only daughter of the prestigious Lin family. Not only was I the cherished first child, blessed with stunning beauty and a life of incredible luxury, but I was also adored by my parents and doted on by my brothers. The only dark cloud? The original owner of this body was a love-obsessed villainess. She was so hopelessly infatuated with the male lead that she would stop at nothing, no matter how cruel or malicious, to have him, ultimately meeting a terrible end. Of course, the lovesick fool isn't me. After transmigrating here, I looked at my penthouse apartment, my unlimited credit cards, and my closet full of designer clothes, and I couldn't help but smile. Are men as good as financial freedom? Without a second thought, I decided I had to change my destiny immediately and enjoy a lifetime of comfort and wealth. Fortunately, I had arrived early. The main plot hadn't started yet. The male and female leads hadn't even made their entrance. There was still time. Miss, I just heard the chairman say that in 3 days, young Master Chen will be returning from closing the overseas deal. This is wonderful news for our Lin Corporation, isn't it? In the high-end cafe, my assistant Mei-Ling looked at me excitedly, as if I were about to become the happiest woman in Shanghai. Chen Wei is the eldest son of the influential Chen family. We were childhood friends, betrothed since we were young, a pair praised by everyone in our social circle as the perfect golden couple. Everyone believed that when he returned triumphant from his business venture, it would be time for us to announce our wedding date, as if marrying him was the crowning achievement of my life. Not only did Mei-Ling think this, but the original owner did too. But now I just want to say one thing. Screw that. Following the original plot, I would eagerly await Chen Wei's return. But I wouldn't just be waiting for him. I'd also get a bonus. The female lead, a meek and delicate white lotus who endures suffering in silence. Caught between her and Chen Wei's ambiguous relationship, I'd become jealous and immediately start publicly humiliating and undermining her, making her feel wronged. She would suffer but refuse to speak up. Chen Wei, standing beside her, would feel a mix of pity and frustration, but would still stay with me out of obligation. On one hand, loving her, on the other, letting me torment her until she was nearly broken. Only then would he suddenly realize who was truly in his heart and begin to ruthlessly destroy me and my family. In this toxic drama, I played the role of a woman driven mad by love, a villainess with brains but no wisdom, who would ultimately meet a disgraceful end. The female lead played a woman who loved silently and endured, who had a mouth but didn't know how to use it, ultimately suffering first and finding happiness later. As for the male lead, as the mastermind of this mess, after emotionally abusing the female lead for what felt like forever, he would have a change of heart, easily gain her forgiveness, and in the end get the girl and the power. The only price paid would be my life and the complete ruin of my entire family corporation. I can only say one thing. Damn it. As a transmigrator, I feel utterly powerless. Do you all think the author who wrote this trashy web novel cares about my life or death? But I'm paying attention. From the first day I arrived, I began calculating how to escape this wretched fate. And I definitely don't want to follow the typical transmigration novel path of winning the male lead back. In short, I know very well that if I entrust my entire life to a man, I'd only be setting myself up for misery. I still want to peacefully enjoy a lifetime of wealth and prosperity. So I must turn around and overturn this chessboard that's been set up against me. 3 days later, Chen Wei returned to Shanghai, bringing with him the female lead, the White Lotus, Su Xinyi. Everyone in our circle knew that young Master Chen didn't get close to women. Besides his fiancée, me, no other woman could approach him. However, in front of so many people at the airport, there was a girl in a simple white dress stepping out of Chen Wei's private car. She was even wearing a limited edition scarf that the original owner of this body had personally sourced for him. The two of them, one tall and commanding, the other slender and delicate, standing together, truly looked like a perfect match. In an instant, countless strange glances shot toward me, some probing, some curious, but mostly mocking. I was no longer Chen Wei's exception. I should have been shocked, jealous, heartbroken, and furious. Then I should have rushed over, coldly demanded who this girl was, thrown a scene that trampled Chen Wei's dignity and made Su Xinyi cry in fear. But all those reactions would have to be based on me having feelings for him. Since I'm not the original owner, I don't love the male lead, so I'm clearer-headed than she ever was. The reason Chen Wei and I could be engaged was primarily because our two families were equals, a perfect alliance. He's the heir of a conglomerate with an illustrious background, and I'm the daughter of a rival conglomerate. His reputation is important, and mine is equally important. So I put on the most skillful expression possible, smiled beautifully and charmingly, and under the piercing gazes of the crowd, walked up to Chen Wei. "It's been a long time, Chen Wei. Congratulations on your successful acquisition. I heard from your father that this deal was incredibly impressive. You must tell me all about it later at the celebration gala." From my words to my demeanor, everything was open and generous, not showing the slightest hint of reproach. I even revealed a bit of practiced intimacy. Seeing me like this, Chen Wei felt momentarily ashamed, then stepped slightly away from Su Xinyi, came closer to me, and smiled gently to smooth things over. "Lingxi, it's been a long time. You've really changed a lot." Chen Wei and I hadn't seen each other for a whole year. In his memory, I was probably both fragile and willful, especially when facing other girls who wanted to approach him. I would even pick fights for no reason. But now I had a composure he'd never encountered before, so he couldn't help but be surprised. "Is that so?" I glanced lightly towards Su Xinyi, then looked straight into his eyes and winked playfully. "You've also changed a lot. Now you know how to be a caring gentleman." Chen Wei was startled, and also glanced at Su Xinyi standing awkwardly beside him, frowning as he said, "This is Su Xinyi, Lingxi. When I was dealing with a hostile takeover overseas, I was under a lot of stress and fell ill. Her mother, who ran the local inn, took care of me." "Oh, is that so?" I cut him off using a volume the people around could clearly hear, and continued, "Miss Su's family showed you kindness, and you're not even properly seeing to her comfort." After saying this, I turned toward the back and waved my hand, calling Mei Ling over. The journey was long and arduous. I think Miss Su must be very tired too. "Mei Ling, why don't you take Miss Su to the hotel to freshen up and rest?" The moment Su Xinyi saw Mei Ling walking toward her, her face already showed confusion, looking at Chen Wei as if seeking help. Chen Wei looked at her with some reluctance. "Lingxi, actually I still smiled sweetly and replied, 'Today is the celebration gala hosted by your father, Chen Wei. You can do as you please, but shouldn't you let Miss Su get settled first? This gala is a big deal. More than half the city's elite will be there.' This gala was a major event, not just to celebrate Chen Wei's success, but also to showcase the strength of the Chen Corporation. So even if Chen Wei had doubts, he couldn't make a scene over something that might seem trivial and damage the family's reputation and honor. Seeing Chen Wei remain silent, Su Xinyi's beautiful face paled a few shades. However, she could only lower her eyes and let Mei Ling lead her away. In the original story, my aggressive, devouring demeanor made Chen Wei uncomfortable, so he would speak out in front of the crowd, saying he had promised Mrs. Su to take care of Xinyi. I would be furious and slap Xinyi in front of everyone. Not only would I be branded a jealous harpy, but it would also create a rift between Chen Wei and me, thus starting my path as the villainess. But the current situation had been easily turned around completely simply because I don't love Chen Wei. One can see that love without reason makes people go crazy, and can also make people stupid. On the terrace of the Chen family's penthouse, Chen Wei stood before me, looking ashamed and pleading. I have to apologize for this matter. Sydney's mother showed me great kindness, and before she passed, she entrusted Xin Yi to me. How could I betray the wish of my benefactor? But you can rest assured, my heart only has you, Lingxi. The person I want to marry is only you. I patiently stood there listening to him finish, then glanced toward the potted plant behind his back. In that instant, I caught a glimpse of a white dress fabric hiding there. Just like in the original text, after Chen Wei explained to me, the female lead heard everything clearly, not missing a single word. This is truly a cheap romance story worth 3 cents that necessarily must have a segment of misunderstanding and mutual torment. Reading it makes one sick. Based on the female lead's image of having a mouth but not knowing how to speak, she would only silently feel heartbroken and dejected. I really didn't want to play the role of an evil rival interfering in the idiotic love between these two people. So I walked around Chen Wei and went forward, using one hand to pull out Su Xinyi, who was hiding behind the large planter. In an instant, the atmosphere became awkward. Miss Lin, I just came out to get some air. Su Xinyi's eyes were red-rimmed, looking like a startled little animal, looking straight at Chen Wei and me while shaking her head in explanation. Chen Wei, on the other hand, was visibly somewhat panicked, even instinctively taking a step towards Su Xinyi. I looked at Chen Wei with slight disappointment. Chen Wei, I understand you. I know you value kindness and promises heavily, but today is the day of your triumphant return. The entire city has its eyes on you. Even the media is watching closely. This should have been the moment for you to shine. Yet you publicly brought her back with you. If you and I didn't have an engagement, that would be one thing. But you did this while we're engaged. Do you know people will gossip about you? What will they say about me? If you want to repay kindness, there are many ways. Are you really so impatient that you can't bear it anymore? Chen Wei saw the heavy disappointment in the depths of my eyes, and his expression gradually became ashen. I shook my head internally, continuing. Moreover, this is when you and I are engaged. Your father once told my father that the Chen family values loyalty, that a Chen man should be devoted to one partner, and that you would never betray me. After finishing, I turned my gaze to Su Xinyi. You clearly knew everything, yet you still came back here with him. Do you dare to honestly say you've never had even the slightest feelings for him? Hit right in their secret hearts, both people standing in front stared wide-eyed, pupils trembling. How could there be no feelings? When Chen Wei was overseas, stressed and isolated, it was Mrs. Su who took him in. It was Su Xinyi who cared for him day and night. Proximity breeds affection, but in Chen Wei's heart, he still constantly thought of me, yet couldn't help developing feelings for Su Xinyi, confused and not knowing what to do. But one should never let the kindness of being saved cloud one's judgment. When Mrs. Su was on her deathbed, this misguided emotion sank deep in the mire of gratitude, becoming the reason for Chen Wei to sink deeper. On one hand, he indulged himself, allowing his heart to be split. On the other hand, he turned his selfishness and inner torment into resentment, dumping it all on Su Xinyi alone. Lingxi, listen to me. Chen Wei still wanted to explain something, but I decisively turned around. Before leaving, I didn't forget to leave behind one sentence. We shouldn't discuss this matter anymore today, but our engagement needs you and I to reconsider. We'll discuss it another day. Finishing my words without looking back, I walked straight away. Miss, why did they treat you like that? Why did you let them off so easily? In the car back to the family estate, Mei Ling was massaging my shoulders, her heart full of indignation. Since when did I say I'd let those two off? I chuckled. Speaking of which, what I did today was also for our Lin Corporation's reputation. The trouble was caused by Chen Wei and Su Shenyi. Naturally, the blame should fall on them. Why should I add fuel to the fire and get myself burned? Moreover, if I had made a scene like in the original story, ruining the celebration gala right there and then, wouldn't I just be offending his father and the Chen Corporation? If the fault doesn't lie with me, then what I need to do is preserve my dignity and distance myself as much as possible. It's just that, without me fanning the flames, I wonder if Chen Wei and his little white lotus can bear the consequences of their recklessness. That said, although I tried my best to preserve the face of both Chen Wei and myself, quite a few people still sense the ambiguity beneath the surface. And the thing that spreads fastest in this city is gossip. So, the engagement between you and young Master Chen? Mei Ling pondered my words for a moment before asking tentatively. I waved my hand, destiny. These two words don't just require the right person, they need the right timing even more. Without the right timing, everything is just wasted effort. I also don't want to become a plaything for him and the female lead to toy with. It's just that our engagement involves the interests of two major corporations. It's not easy to sever. Currently, the female lead has already appeared. I naturally must make good use of her. As for Chen Lei, if I'm not there, based on the old plot, my family's corporation will still be offered up as a sacrifice for his and Su Shenyi's love. How could he embrace his beauty so easily? As I predicted, the day after the celebration gala, the story of Chen Wei and Su Shenyi had spread through every corner of the high society gossip mill. The Chen family's reputation for integrity had always been praised. Wasn't this incident like a hard slap to their face? There were even board members expressing concerns, and the news reached my father's hands. But what worried them more than anything was the engagement between me and Chen Wei. Old Mr. Chen personally dragged Chen Wei to our door to apologize to my father and me. My father and old Mr. Chen had been business partners for generations. He couldn't bear to displease the old man, but my father loved me more than that. He accepted old Mr. Chen's apology, but still postponed the marriage between me and Chen Wei. Chen Wei looked at me with a gentle expression and soft voice, saying many words of apology. I only responded half-heartedly. Chen Wei, hoping to coax me, also temporarily set aside his relationship with Su Shenyi, arranging her to stay temporarily in an apartment away from the main Chen family home, focusing all his attention on me. He had people deliver small gifts to the estate daily for me, personally coming to the door to invite me out. I skillfully declined all of them. He kept thinking this was because I was still sulking, and said he'd wait until I was no longer angry. But I knew that with Su Shenyi here, Chen Wei's heart would only grow more distant from me day by day, and if I got involved in these two people's messy relationship, it would never end as simply as that. Just like now, the gala had barely been over for 7 days when I encountered Su Shenyi again at a luxury jewelry store. I was still upstairs in the VIP room selecting pieces when I heard a commotion and noise downstairs. Going out to see what was happening, I found that downstairs had somehow gathered quite a crowd, with several young socialites surrounding one person, and among them was Su Shenyi. I could only feel my heart sinking. The people standing beside Su Shenyi I had seen before. They were all daughters of minor executives and various companies. The ringleader, Zhao Meihua, was also one of the minor villainesses in the original story. When these people appeared together in one place, there naturally wouldn't be anything good happening. I had barely started thinking when Zhao Meihua started her performance downstairs. What a shameless homewrecker, destroying other people's relationships, yet still having the face to parade around everywhere? Look at your shabby, poor appearance. This store is also a place you're worthy of entering? How unlucky. Su Shenyi was being insulted by these young women one sentence after another, tears welling up, unable to say even one word in rebuttal. She was truly built according to the image of a mute person. Seeing this made me feel frustrated. Seeing that she never managed to speak up, the momentum of the others only grew stronger. Seeing Zhao Meihua's hand about to fall on Su Shenyi's face, I spoke up. She is not unworthy to that extent. What makes you worthy? With an expressionless face, I walked down from upstairs, looking intently at Zhao Meihua. What kind of manners is it to open your mouth and spew such venom? Are you worthy, Miss Zhao? All the young ladies immediately jumped in fright upon seeing me, then quickly crowded around with flattering smiles. Miss Lin, this girl is trying to seduce young Master Chen. We really couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to teach her a lesson for you. I'll teach her for myself. I laughed coldly. Miss Zhao, you're really mighty and impressive. Now you can do things in my place? In the future, do you also want to take my place as the daughter of the Lin family? Zhao Meihua usually tried to curry favor with me. She knew I never liked other girls approaching Chen Wei. But she never expected that her actions would instead anger me. She immediately trembled with fear. I didn't mean that, Miss Lin. I was wrong. I won't dare again. If I catch you all bullying others by relying on your family backgrounds, wait for your fathers to receive a call from my father. One sentence was enough to scare those people into continuously admitting their mistakes. Even the jewelry they had selected, they didn't dare to take, quickly fleeing. I turned to Su Xingyi standing behind me, staring blankly at me with tears brimming on her eyelashes, had already forgotten to fall. Thank you, Miss Lin. After a while, she finally came to her senses and stammered. No need. I shook my head, preparing to leave. Su Xingyi suddenly called me back. Miss Lin, why? Why did you help me? Why not just let those people... I got a headache. She stood stunned, hesitated for a moment. Don't you hate me, Miss Lin? Hate me? Why should I hate you? Because of Chen Wei. Hate me? What use would that be? Besides, relationships have always meant that both parties are mutually willing. If there's faults, it's not just you alone who's to blame. What makes people hate the stereotypical female rival in stories most is dumping all the reasons for losing the male lead onto the female lead. Truth is, the female lead isn't entirely pure either, but one side plays the role of deep affection, while the other transfers all his conflicted emotions onto the female lead, causing the rival to go mad from love. Clearly, it's the male lead who's the problem. Any resentment should be directed at the root source of everything. Telling me to become a vengeful woman over such a man seems rather forced, doesn't it? Su Xingyi probably never expected I would say such things. She was quite startled. She stood dazed for a long time before slowly saying, You're very different from what I imagined. Is that so? I smiled faintly. Well, I hope I don't disappoint you, Miss Su. Having been peaceful for just a few days, I was interrupted again. Chen Wei sent someone to deliver a message, asking me to come to the Cloud9 restaurant, saying that if I didn't go, he wouldn't leave, insisting on waiting until I came. Honestly, I didn't care how long he wanted to wait there. If he could wait until he became a skeleton, that would be even better. It's just that some matters, no matter what, must have an ending. When I arrived, he was sitting by the window. When he reached for my hand, I lightly withdrew it. Chen Wei's always gentle expression mixed with a bit of unnaturalness. I was wrong, Lingxi. I admit that you are the person I love most. Only you. I looked at him intently without responding. This man seems to have so much love. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. But if he truly got both, they would all become discarded things. Only what he seeks but cannot have becomes a lifelong obsession. Lingxi, please don't be angry with me anymore, all right? I sighed very lightly, cutting off his words. Chen Wei, I've thought it through. Let's break off our engagement. Chen Wei stood stunned, disbelief rising in the depths of his eyes. What did you say? Looking into each other's eyes, I repeated word by word. I said, I've decided we're calling off our engagement. I'm making way for you and Su Xingyi. Tomorrow, I'll have my father send someone to the Chen Corporation to deliver the formal notice. In the blink of an eye, Chen Wei frowned. This was a situation he had never anticipated. He fell silent for a while, his expression finally darkening. "If you don't want to see Sin Yi, I'll arrange for her to leave the city tomorrow. In my life, there will be only one woman, you. I'll also treat you twice as well. In short, I won't accept this. Don't mention it again in the future." Even though the current situation had already become like this, he still wanted to have it all. I shook my head. Of course I wouldn't let him brush everything aside so easily. But based on what should I let myself suffer by being with someone who has no loyalty to me? I've already made it clear. My feelings for Sin Yi are only gratitude. His face was serious, his tone also serious. I raised my head to look straight into the depths of his eyes. Chen Wei was truly very handsome. One could say breathtakingly so. This face gave him the ability to easily bewitch any woman's mind. If I hadn't already known the plot, clearly known his fickle heart, perhaps I would have been persuaded by his serious demeanor. My gaze carried a stream of doubt, cold to the bone. "Do you believe it yourself? I've already seen your wavering heart. I understand your love better than you do yourself." He still wanted to put on a facade to cover his ugly inner nature. This made me want to pierce through his layer of disguise even more. Living such a bright and glorious life, one should not fall into a mud pit for anyone. Having seen your true colors, why should I torment myself? Not only will I not do that, I want to stand with my dignity intact and look down on you. Chen Wei, it was you who violated our previous vows. Obviously, he became flustered when his secret was exposed. His face darkened, and after a long time, Chen Wei looked at me very deeply. Must we really reach this point? I didn't answer, only leaving behind a final gaze, no longer looking at him. After a long time, he finally staggered away. Just as he turned around, brilliant fireworks suddenly bloomed in the dark sky from a nearby celebration. A feast of fireworks illuminated the entire night sky. The fire flowers all over the sky shone down, making Chen Wei's shadow even longer and more desolate, also making him appear even more miserable. These fireworks were probably originally meant for him to rekindle things with me, but now they seem to be congratulating me for escaping this wretched man. Are you truly determined to break the engagement with Chen Wei? It's not just momentary anger, right? Father asked me. You used to love him so much too. I nodded. Yes, Father. He fell silent for a while before sighing. If we're breaking it off, then so be it, as long as our Ling Shi won't regret it in the future. Your father never had the heart to marry you off anyway. Ever since you were small, you liked that boy from the Chen family, and the Chen family has always preached loyalty and commitment. I thought he was worthy of entrusting you to him. Now it seems that boy isn't as trustworthy as I thought. I acted coquettishly, pulling at Father's sleeve. Thankfully, Chen Wei and I haven't set a public wedding date yet. Breaking off the engagement now is still in time. Loyalty and commitment. What beautiful words. It's a pity that in the original story, their purpose was to serve the dramatic love story between the male and female leads. Naturally, they wouldn't let a rival like me benefit from them. But remembering that white figure who always seemed to be hiding in the shadows, I narrowed my eyes again. The love stories surrounding the male and female leads, no matter where you run, you can't completely escape from it. After accidentally encountering each other and hearing Chen Wei deny his feelings, I wonder what Su Xinyi ultimately thinks about such a man. Is he worth it for her? Forget it. Never mind. I am the daughter of the Lin family. What kind of man can't I marry? Why should I circle around Chen Wei and suffer harm? Father gently stroked the top of my head, pulling my thoughts back. Looking at his loving and caring face, I smiled, stood up, and massaged his shoulders. Father, I want to discuss something with you. Father relaxed and closed his eyes. There's nothing you can't tell me. What is it? I lowered my voice. It's about the board and the future direction of the company. Father's eyes shot wide open in extreme surprise.
Then he quickly whispered, "Did someone say something to you?" I shook my head. I figured it out myself. Based on the original story, the current chairman of the group was now in declining health, but the undercurrents in the boardroom were surging. Several powerful factions were now drawing the Lin Corporation into their camps. Father was most impressed with Director Long's faction. Although Director Long didn't have a vast ancestral empire, he was shrewd, had many successful projects under his belt, and was quite highly regarded. Once involved in a power struggle for control of the conglomerate, success means prosperity. Failure brings complete ruin. Every move cannot be taken back. Lingxi, you also know that the battles in the boardroom are cunning and extremely dangerous. One wrong step, and it's all over. This isn't a place where a young lady can easily interfere. I know, but if you are hesitating now, why not let your daughter help you share some of the burden? Father looked at me for a moment, then finally nodded. My child has indeed become much more understanding than before. It's just that once you take one step into this, there's no way to turn back later. Have you thought it through carefully? I smiled and said, "I've thought it through, Father. A daughter naturally must shoulder part of the responsibility for the future of the Lin family." In fact, over the years, the Lin family had cultivated not just social graces in the original owner, but considerable business acumen too. Speaking of which, she was also the daughter of a major conglomerate, and her betrothed was also a scion of another. With such a status, they wouldn't have let her become a delicate flower without a care in the world. Years of upbringing had formed her own unique perspectives. It's just that in the original story, she was severely dumbed down, only knowing how to compete for the male lead's love and then clash with the female lead. That's why she foolishly walked step by step toward her own tragic ending. Now, if I had to choose between competing for the male lead or fighting with the female lead, I choose to build a career. Choosing men would make me lose everything, but choosing a career would give me unlimited prospects. Father nodded. I immediately began to thoroughly investigate the various relationships and power dynamics within the conglomerate. When my mother learned about this, she was also very worried. She always felt that I was suffering from heartbreak and being stimulated, wanting to find something to do so I wouldn't be in low spirits. She had carefully examined me several times, but seeing that my mood was stable, eating and sleeping well, she stopped worrying and only reminded me not to exhaust myself. Corporate affairs are complex and murky. They can't be understood overnight. I nodded in agreement. My busy schedule not only didn't decrease, but increased, because I knew very well that the chairman's health couldn't hold out much longer. My remaining time was getting less and less. In the original story, Father was repeatedly courted by various factions and eventually threw his support behind Director Long. Unexpectedly, Director Long was the type who forgets kindness and abandons righteousness. Fearing the influence of the Lin Corporation, within 3 years of consolidating power, he began to chip away at the Lins, cutting and cutting until Father was completely sidelined. The original owner had planned to rely on her relationship with Chen Wei, begging him to help the Lin Corporation once. But what she waited for was a corporate takeover, and her family being framed for fraud and embezzlement. The one who delivered the final blow was precisely Chen Wei. So what I must do now is persuade Father to choose a different ally. After reading the corporate structure and alliance map I had carefully arranged, he became quite thoughtful. Currently, a significant block on the board seems to be aligning with Director Long. If we support Director Long, it would seem quite reliable on the surface. I shook my head, lightly tapping the desk. Director Long's supporters are numerous, but most are in middle management with little real voting power or influence. If you add your support, Director Long's chances would be higher. However, tall trees attract the wind. Great influence is a sweet nectar for those without it, but a poison for those who have it. Not to mention that Director Long, though ambitious, doesn't have a major legacy shareholding behind him. If we help him, we would become his greatest backing. Father frowned, pondering deeply. So, if we voluntarily cede some seats on the board and subsidiaries in exchange for peace, what do you think of that? That might be the expected move. We could completely gamble once, but what if we lose? Gambling with the entire Lin Corporation's assets and the jobs of everyone who works for us. Let's see what calculations lie in the chairman's heart and Director Long's. Oh, that's truly not a wise move. In my eyes, giving up some power fundamentally isn't enough for Director Long. He wants to swallow everything, completely devouring the entire Lin Corporation. Otherwise, even if he showed a bit of human compassion, the Lin Corporation wouldn't have been completely dismantled. Father stared blankly at the documents on the desk for a long while. After a moment, he slowly raised his eyes to look straight at me, his face showing a smile. Excellent. Excellent. My Ling Si truly has a strategic mind. His voice was full of pride. I smiled. Lin Lingxi actually had many advantages. As the only daughter of the Lin family, everyone loved and cherished her, never forcing her to do things she didn't want to do, even supported all her decisions unconditionally. If it weren't for Chen Wei, this life was already predetermined for her to be the young lady who lived most according to her own will in the city. The current path was finally following a better trajectory. After a moment, Father stroked his chin again. If not Director Long, then does my Lingxi already have a suitable candidate in mind to support? The current chairman had favored several executives. Besides the ambitious Director Long and the latecomer Director Zhang, who died young, only the mediocre Senior Vice President Wang and VP Li remained, plus the often sickly Director Feng from the research division. I nodded. Of course I do. Not only that, but he's someone more suited to lead the company than anyone else. After hearing me speak, Father Lin finally didn't ally with Director Long, but temporarily maintained a neutral position. Without the support of the Lin Corporation, Director Long knew when to advance and retreat, turning his attention toward the Chen Corporation. Father deliberately gave me a probing look, but I wasn't surprised by this development at all. Following the original plot exactly, the Chen Corporation ultimately still chose to support Director Long, becoming Director Long's second greatest support. It's just that in the original story, there was the Lin Corporation's endorsement plus the male lead halo of Chen Wei, so Director Long treated Chen Wei as his confidant, dealing with the Chen Corporation with utmost intimacy. Now, without the Lin Corporation as backup for the Chen family, I truly wanted to see just how far Chen Wei's protagonist halo could protect him. Changing the original plot didn't guarantee absolute safety for the Lin Corporation either. To ensure the Lin Corporation escaped its original fate, I went to find Father again, requesting some trusted personnel to begin arranging them to help me gather intelligence. During this period, quite a few other things happened. First, Father was targeted several times in board meetings. The mastermind behind this one was not hard to guess, Director Long. After all, he was still like sand in the eye that couldn't be rubbed out. The Lin Corporation's refusal to ally with him meant he now considered those who didn't choose him as enemies. Both Father and I had already anticipated this. Just bring it on. Another matter was about Chen Wei and Su Shenyi. Without the evil female rival, me, running in to interfere with the male and female lead's relationship, their development wasn't going very smoothly either. According to gossip from contacts within the Chen Corporation, after I broke off the engagement with Chen Wei, his treatment of Su Shenyi was even worse than before. It seemed he blamed everything on Su Shenyi for my abandoning him. As a result, from top to bottom, no one in the Chen household treated her well. I had also encountered Su Shenyi several times in the city. She was becoming increasingly thin and frail, her condition much worse than before. I even saw once during a heavy downpour that Chen Wei actually pushed her out of his car on the roadside, letting her get soaked. Each time like this, Su Shenyi would only swallow her tears, exactly like the female lead in those torturous novels, silently enduring all grievances. So frustrating to watch. So frustrating that even I, the supposed villainess, felt my blood boiling. I expressed serious doubt about the original author's brain circuitry. Does enduring silently and moving yourself really earn love and respect in return? If you don't even care about your own feelings, how can you persuade others to take you into their hearts? Moreover, placing all your hopes on one man is the most foolish thinking. It's truly not praiseworthy at all. At the same time as Chen Wei and Su Shenyi's drama, it was also a month later when the group's annual executive retreat arrived. Father brought me to participate, but I never expected that Chen Wei would also bring Su Shenyi along. Considering the current relationship between the two, bringing her along in this situation sounded absolutely ridiculous. But thinking again, this was a romance novel, I felt that the male and female lead appearing together suddenly seemed quite reasonable after all. Imagining the scene of the evil female rival and the male and female lead all appearing simultaneously, plus this was a corporate retreat in a modern romance, there's a 90% chance something would happen. I sighed deeply. I must stay far away from these two unlucky ones. But just as I lowered my head to think, suddenly a figure appeared in front of me. Then a deep, warm voice came from above my head.
Lingxi. I looked up. It was Chen Wei. I was avoiding him, yet he actively came to find me. After studying my emotions, I asked indifferently, Chen Wei, is there something you need? You've been avoiding me lately. Chen Wei looked pained. We've already broken off our engagement. According to propriety, we should maintain distance to prevent gossip. After the broken engagement, Chen Wei and I hadn't met many times. The few times we almost ran into each other, I actively found ways to avoid him. Chen Wei reluctantly sighed heavily. Seeing no one immediately around, he lowered his voice to whisper, Today, I have something I want to discuss with you. The Chen Corporation is currently allied with Director Long. Director Long is the person most likely to succeed the chairman. He also knows that the Lin Corporation and Director Long are now like fire and water, and knows that your father has been repeatedly challenged in board meetings. But in his heart, he still cared for me as before. So he wanted to persuade me, advised me not to be blind to the current situation anymore, advised me to return to his side. This way, the two corporations would be allied through marriage, making it logical to support Director Long.
He spoke with deep affection and sincerity. I listened until I nearly yawned. I looked at him seriously. Chen Wei, what makes you feel that I would still recall old feelings with you? Chen Wei sincerely replied, This power struggle, one wrong move and you lose everything. I don't want to see you get implicated. Lingxi, come back to my side. I will definitely protect you. Don't worry about anything. I smiled lightly. Protect me? Chen Wei's protection would be to make me marry you, right? To become a delicate, fragile flower dependent on you for life, always hoping for your protection? Chen Wei frowned. Lingxi, the struggle for control cannot be guided by emotions. The Lin Corporation has already formed enmity with Director Long. If we want to resolve this, that's the best way. Once you've entered the game, there's no backing out. I calmly spoke. A game that hasn't finished, no one can predict the certain outcome. Even if the Lin Corporation falls to ruin, that's because we played our hand wrong and will bear the consequences ourselves. Don't trouble yourself to worry for us. After speaking, I walked around Chen Wei, preparing to leave. I also encountered Su Huingyi coming this way to find Chen Wei. I paused for a moment and added, Moreover, if you truly had me in your heart, you would naturally trust me, help me, stand shoulder to shoulder with me, rather than keeping me caged under your wings until I become so delicate that I can't stand on my own. That's not love. That's just the selfish, cowardly, possessive desire of a man, nothing more. Finishing my words without waiting for Chenwei's reaction, I met Suhunyi's shocked gaze and walked away confidently. Whether it was the original owner or Su Huingyi, the greatest tragedy in these women's lives was becoming dependent playthings that enhanced the male lead's charm. He slapped the label of love on them, broke their wings, and expected them to live in his shadow, dependent on him for life, living off his affection, and even being grateful for it. These are nothing more than ways to satisfy a shallow, base, possessive desire, hardly worthy of being called love. The executive retreat included a team-building hike. Father encouraged me to go and have some fun. I'm not the original owner, I'm not an experienced hiker, and my outdoor skills are basic, but I couldn't refuse his enthusiasm. So I changed into hiking gear, grabbed a walking stick, and set out into the forested trails, planning to take a leisurely walk and then return. But before I could make it back to the resort, something happened. While walking near a rocky outcrop, I suddenly heard the sound of something massive shifting up above. I looked up and saw several large rocks and debris tumbling down the slope toward me. Fortunately, my reflexes were quite sharp. I quickly turned and scrambled into a small, cave-like recess in the rock face, but in the process of dodging, I was still hit by a few smaller stones, sustaining some minor cuts and bruises. Most unfortunately, the entrance to the recess was partially blocked by the fallen debris. Above me was a gap just big enough for a person to squeeze through. Regrettably, the rock was slippery and I had twisted my ankle, so I couldn't climb out for the moment. I had no choice but to wait patiently to see if anyone would notice I was missing and come look for me, but I never expected that the first person to find me would be Su Huingyi. Sitting with my arms crossed, watching the sky outside gradually darken with still no one coming, I sighed and was just planning to grit my teeth and try to climb out when I heard someone beyond the debris call out, joyfully and urgently, "Miss Ling? Miss Ling, are you in there?" I was startled. Su Huingyi and I hadn't exchanged many words, but that clear, gentle voice was definitely hers. "Su Huingyi, it's me." She was overjoyed. "I finally found you. Miss Ling, are you all right?"
I smiled bitterly. "I'm fine, but I sprained my ankle and can't climb up. I'll have to trouble you to go find my father and ask him to send help." Su Shenyi anxiously asked, peering in. "A sprained ankle? Is it serious?" I was about to say it wasn't too serious, but the light in front of me suddenly dimmed. Something was blocking the light source from outside. I instinctively looked up at the gap above my head. What met my eyes was a pair of almond-shaped eyes full of concern. "Can you see me?" Su Shenyi asked. Then, to my astonishment, she descended from the gap, light and agile as a feather. I was so shocked I forgot to speak for a moment. That gap wasn't very high, but with my injury, I was worried that random movement would make it worse. Plus, I was confident that my father, who doted on his daughter, would soon send a search party, so I hadn't risked the climb yet. But honestly, seeing such rough, athletic prowess from Su Shenyi was too surprising. Seeing me stare blankly at her, Su Shenyi also shrank back a bit. My mother was a traveling doctor. I followed her up mountains to gather herbs since childhood, so I'm quite agile and know a bit about first aid. I remained silent. Well then, Su Shenyi's mother was indeed a doctor. In fact, she was an extremely skilled one, which is how she could nurse Chen Wei back to health when he was stricken with a severe stress-related illness overseas. I've followed my mother in her practice for many years, through wind and rain. If Miss Lin doesn't mind, may I examine you? Su Shenyi carefully suggested. I comfortably rolled up my pant leg and extended my injured ankle for her to see. The female lead of this story wasn't useless either. She had exceptional talent and extremely high skill in medicine. When caring for Chen Wei, she had also helped others in the local community.
reaching a level that, in modern times, might even earn commendations. So I never doubted her medical skills. It's just a pity that, according to the plot, beside Chen Wei, this pinnacle medical skill of hers was rarely displayed for others. Su Shenyi looked at my ankle, her brow furrowed tightly. Fortunately, you didn't move around carelessly. Otherwise, if left improperly treated, it could take months to heal properly. Why are you here? While Su Shenyi was still carefully feeling for bone damage, I tilted my head to probe. She answered while her movements remained swift and uninterrupted. I heard Chairman Lin tell people at the resort that you were missing. When they asked around, they learned you'd last been seen heading this way. So, I came to find you. I looked at her intently, my eyes searching. Su Shenyi nodded. I was puzzled, thinking for a long time but couldn't figure it out. I considered that we weren't really acquainted. Not only not close, we could even be considered romantic rivals. I truly couldn't understand why she would help my father look for me and even care about me to this extent. As if knowing what I was thinking, Su Shenyi spoke up. You've helped me before, so I can't just sit by and not care about you. After saying this, she took out a small, elegant handkerchief from her pocket. Embroidered in one corner was a delicate Lin character. Looking at this handkerchief, I remembered something. That day, when it was raining, Chen Wei abandoned Su Shenyi by the roadside. I had Mei Ling bring her an umbrella. This handkerchief was one I had had tucked in my pocket that day, and must have given her to dry her face. I waved my hand dismissively. It was just an umbrella and a handkerchief. It wasn't just that. Su Shenyi shook her head, her eyes like shattered light, looking at me intently. There was also that day at the jewelry store, when you stood up for me. Miss Lin, you are an extremely kind person. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The female lead, Little White Lotus, praising the evil female rival as a good person. If this was placed in the entire novel universe, it would surely make people dumbfounded. Miss Lin? Su Shenyi called me again, her expression serious. Yes, I replied. I'm sorry. She faced me in silence for a long time, as if preparing herself psychologically. After a long time, she slowly continued. I have feelings for Chen Wei. I raised my eyebrow. Oh, when our village was being pressured by a corporate land buying scheme, when I was almost threatened by their enforcers, it was thanks to Chen Wei intervening and saving me. From then on, I've had feelings for him. So, when I knew he was ill and stressed, I went to care for him. But initially, I didn't know he already had someone he loved. I also didn't think that my mother would use her last moments to entrust me to him. I originally didn't want to follow him back here.
He said he had promised my mother he would take care of me. I knew my background was humble, knew clearly that he had you in his heart, but I still hoped he could look at me a few more times, even if it was just a glance. But after meeting you for the first time, I knew I was wrong. She bit her lip, both stubborn and enduring. Miss Lin, you are dazzling, an extremely good person who deserves to be cherished wholeheartedly. I know I shouldn't continue clinging to Chen Lei, but I also have my own circumstances. Please be patient with me for a while. I will definitely leave him. Why do you need to tell me when you plan to leave him? I blinked. I have no interest in taking back something that's already been soiled by disloyalty. Su Shenyi was taken aback, then snarled bitterly. You're right. Miss Lin deserves someone better. After finishing, she lowered her head again and seriously tended to my sprained ankle. I watched her intently for a long while. Miss Su? Yes? Her large round eyes were full of puzzlement. You're very different from what I imagined. She suddenly laughed. The doubt in her eyes transformed into specks of light, filling them like a pair of full moons. Well, I hope I don't disappoint, Miss Lin.
Moonlight streamed down, illuminating the slender girl in a simple white dress who was smiling with crescent eyes. Because of the hasty search, a few strands of disheveled hair clung to her snow-white cheeks, making one feel pity. I took a light breath, suddenly understanding a little why Chen Wei was so conflicted. Then I pressed my lips together. Su Shenyi, let's make a deal. Finally, thanks to Su Shenyi guiding my father and the rescue team to me, I was safely retrieved. The doctor came to treat my injuries. He said my ankle had been handled very well. There wouldn't be any major problems. I just needed to rest and let it heal. After the doctor left, Father looked at me sternly. This wasn't an accident, was it? I nodded. I realized it. The hiking trails are maintained and inspected. In theory, apart from normal wilderness risks, there shouldn't be dangers like rockfalls. Moreover, the weather had been good these past few days. It wasn't enough to cause such a slide. So, the most likely scenario was that someone deliberately caused this. It was Director Long. Father's face was darker than ink. How dare he be so reckless? Earlier today, he already sent people to imply threats to me, although he didn't speak explicitly. It was definitely his doing. This is him wanting to use your safety to force me not to oppose him. I rubbed between my eyebrows. I've known Director Long wasn't a magnanimous person for a long time, but honestly, I didn't expect him to be so narrow-minded and petty. So that day, when I declined Chen Wei's advice, I was also completely turning against Director Long. However, I curled my lips. If Director Long has prepared such a big gift for us, then we must also prepare to return the favor properly. Let's see whether his scheming is superior, or whether the information I am familiar with is better. Within half a month, a major piece of news began to spread through the corporate rumor mill. Whispers said that the previous chairman's favorite young protege, who had died in a car accident years ago, was actually the first casualty in the internal power struggle. The protege's death wasn't due to a simple accident, but was orchestrated. As soon as the rumors appeared, the person who received the most sidelong glances was Director Long. Besides him, the other senior executives were either too mediocre or lacked ambition, so when the young, talented protege appeared, the old chairman had paid great attention to him. But heaven didn't favor human wishes. The protege died tragically. From then on, the chairman never favored another rising star so strongly. Such tragedies were not uncommon in the cutthroat business world, so previously everyone thought it was just a tragic accident. But now the news was spreading so rapidly, it couldn't help but make people suspicious. If it was true that the protege was murdered, then the person who benefited the most would definitely be Director Long. Witnessing the rumors becoming more serious day by day, about to shake the stability of the entire conglomerate, various board members and major shareholders began pressuring the current chairman to reopen the investigation into the protege's death. Although Director Long constantly produced evidence to prove his innocence, the chairman still issued a directive for a special internal audit and investigation. In just a moment, everyone was restless, afraid of being splashed by the sturdy water. Director Long was busy dealing with the questioning and accusations from crowds of shareholders and executives. So overwhelmed, he was disheveled. Right at the most chaotic time, another piece of news that no one noticed began to quietly spread. The girl Chen Wei brought back from overseas, Su Shenyi, had suddenly disappeared without a trace. Chen Wei was going mad, turning the entire city upside down looking for her, according to reports from my contacts.
I remained leisurely working from home, planning the corporation's next moves. The noisier things got, the more interesting the story became. After the chairman ordered a thorough investigation, it had been more than a month. The atmosphere of the entire conglomerate changed from initially noisy and chaotic to tense and quiet. At first, only a few junior staff were questioned, but once the investigation began, it couldn't stop. The deeper they dug, the more they uncovered about other suspicious incidents and suppressed internal reports. After investigating thoroughly, in total, over a dozen people were suspended or fired. It could be said that very many people were involved. In the end, a trail of evidence, including suspicious financial transactions and deleted communications, pointed toward Director Long. Initially, Director Long still wanted to clear his name, but unexpectedly, a legendary reclusive forensic accountant, Master Wu, suddenly agreed to consult. He not only analyzed the financial records related to the protégé's projects, but also uncovered hidden transactions linked to Director Long, confirming the patterns of fraud and cover-ups. The Internal Audit Committee continued investigating deeper. After a while, they discovered that years ago, Director Long had authorized payments to shell companies linked to the individuals involved in the protégé's accident. It was said that after the chairman read the preliminary report submitted by the audit committee, he was so furious he had a health episode and was rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, his personal doctor was there to provide timely treatment. But when treated, they discovered some anomalies in his recent medical reports that suggested possible tampering. His health was now failing rapidly. Director Long was immediately suspended and barred from company premises. In just half a short day, the corporate landscape had changed. Su Shengyi and I were having tea in the private lounge of the corporation's Executive Wellness Center. She looked out at the overcast sky and sighed softly. "Looking at this weather, it seems like it's about to rain." I didn't express an opinion. Rain is good too. The stagnant air in this city should be washed clean. If it's going to rain, you two young ladies should stay for dinner and wait until the rain stops before returning. A calm, warm voice came from behind us. Following it was a young man with a handsome, intelligent face who used a wheelchair for mobility due to a chronic condition. Though the young man was in a wheelchair, his demeanor was sharp and his expression was alert. "Are we troubling you, Director Fong?" Su Shengyi and I looked at each other, smiled and nodded. "No trouble at all." Director Fong smiled gently, his eyebrows and eyes full of gratitude. "If not for you two helping me connect with Master Wu and helping uncover the medical tampering, I would have remained in the dark and likely been forced into early retirement due to health reasons." Hearing this, Su Shengyi quickly waved her hands. "This is Ling Shi's achievement. It was Ling Shi who told me about Master Wu's potential location and how to approach him. Without her resources and planning, an ordinary person couldn't have managed it." I spoke slowly. "You two shouldn't be so modest." Director Fong smiled and shook his head somewhat helplessly. "In any case, you both have a life-saving grace toward me. If you have any requests in the future, just speak up." Director Fong only needs to focus on recuperating and getting healthy. After this storm passes, there will be many matters requiring your attention on the board," I said, raising an eyebrow. Previously, Father had asked if I had chosen someone to support in my heart. The person I chose was precisely Director Fong. Director Fong wasn't described much in the original story. It only said he had a sharp mind and was naturally intelligent, with a deep understanding of the company's core technologies. He was also once the executive the old chairman loved most and the one with the greatest hope of leading the company's innovation division. Unfortunately, he had been plagued by a mysterious chronic illness since a young age, with a short life expectancy. In the original plot, he passed away quietly not long after the old chairman. A few brief strokes wrote out his entire life, but as someone holding the script, I knew clearly he wasn't actually sick, but slowly poisoned. He and the late protégé were stepping stones for Director Long to consolidate power. So from the very day I was determined to change the fate of the Lin Corporation, I had already sent people to discreetly observe Director Fong. And he also didn't disappoint my hopes. And despite being hindered by his health, he never forgot his duties.
He didn't resent heaven or blame fate, nor complain about his circumstances. He wholeheartedly devoted all his strength to the company's research and development, always proposing wise strategic insights. If not for health reasons, he would definitely be more suitable for a leadership role than Director Long. So I chose to help him. The original story mentioned that his condition could actually be treated, but the only person who could properly diagnose and reverse the slow poisoning was a specialist, Dr. Wee, who was notoriously difficult to find. The most difficult part was that Dr. Wee's location was unpredictable, and plus he had an eccentric personality. He wouldn't treat O's without a connection, wouldn't heal those who didn't catch his eye.
But I knew the clinic he sometimes volunteered at and also knew how to get him to willingly treat someone. Su-Yin Yi's mother had once, years ago, saved Dr. Wei's mentor during a rural health crisis. In the book, as soon as he saw that Su-Yin Yi resembled her mother by 70% and heard her story, he agreed to help. That was also part of the transaction between Su-Yin Yi and me. She helped me find and persuade Dr. Wei to diagnose and treat Director Feng, and I helped her complete what she couldn't accomplish alone, helping her escape Chen Wei's toxic influence cleanly and thoroughly, and securing her future. Though that wasn't my original plan, having her participate made everything much more convenient. I gave her a path forward, plus a promise of future support from Director Feng. Everything was enough to repay her kindness and give her a new start. The rain lasted 3 days, and the corporate turmoil also quieted for 3 days. Until the morning of the 4th day, an official announcement was released. The chairman, due to health reasons, was stepping down. Before leaving, he had named the newly recovered and cleared Director Feng as the interim CEO, pending a full board vote. Director Long was stripped of his position, fired for cause, and faced criminal investigation. Without the Lin Corporation's support, the Chen Corporation, as Director Long's main ally, couldn't escape the fallout. However, it was said that the night before the corporate audit, old Mr. Chen had already begun hastily transferring assets and distancing the family from Director Long. Even Chen Wei had largely disappeared from public view. When I heard this news, I was in the garden of the family estate trimming flowers. The soon-to-be confirmed CEO, Director Feng, sat relaxed in the pavilion behind me, enjoying the cool air. After observing me for a long while, he teasingly joked, "The Chen family's assets are being frozen, and Chen Wei's reputation is in tatters. Miss Lin still has the spirit to leisurely cut flowers and play with grass. No lingering feelings for old love anymore." With a snip, I decisively cut a branch of flowers. The branch fell to the ground, still bearing an extremely brilliant bloom. The flower had been showing off its beauty, but falling to the ground in an instant, the petals were stained with mud. The fresh, tender flower turned to mud in just a blink of an eye. "Director Feng, look at this flower. Can it grow back again?" The soon-to-be CEO opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by a joyful voice before he could finish. "Ling Shi, this is the herbal tea I just brewed for you. It's very nourishing. Drink it while it's warm." Su-Yin Yi carried a cup of tea, running happily toward me with eyes curved in smiles. I took the cup, tested its temperature, then drank it all. During this time, Su-Yin Yi had devoted herself to learning about nutrition and wellness, making my health increasingly robust since the hiking incident. In return, I cut the most beautifully blooming flower from the bush and gently placed it in her hair. "A beautiful flower for a beautiful lady. How lovely," I said. Yeah, a beautiful flower refers to the lovely flower, and a beautiful lady refers to the beautiful and talented woman. What skill does our future CEO have to suddenly interrupt with business?" Su-Yin Yi playfully chided Director Feng. I wonder what Chen Wei would think seeing this scene, whether he has the presence of mind to see it or not. I smiled mockingly.
Why make the story end so simply? After some time passed, suddenly there was a last-ditch attempt at a corporate takeover. The ringleader was a hidden faction still loyal to Director Long, and his lieutenant was none other than Chen Wei, who had been working behind the scenes. How could Chen Wei be content with this? In the end, he still chose the path of mutual destruction, trying to use his remaining influence to stage a hostile board coup. Just as words had spread throughout the entire business world, making everyone feeling anxious and uneasy, the new leadership, led by Director Fong, seemed to have prepared long in advance, using swift legal and financial maneuvers to block the takeover, exposing the plot, and having the ringleaders arrested. With the leadership of the plot in custody, their supporters were also purged. I went to see Chen Wei one last time before the legal proceedings against him began. The young executive with his heroic spirit of yesteryear could never be as proud as he was in the beginning. His gaze looking at me was heavy. "All of this is your masterpiece, isn't it, Ling Shi?" he asked me. I didn't answer him. He asked again, "When exactly did you start arranging everything?" I still didn't answer him. His eye sockets gradually reddened. "Ling Shi, was there never a place for me in your heart?" "Chen Wei, asking this question now, don't you think it's too late?"
Chen Wei still wanted to say something, but in the end, he never managed to speak, because he had already seen Su Shenyi. The girl named Su Shenyi, from her eyes to her heart, now only had peace. She wouldn't even spare him a glance, just silently walked behind me and draped a light shawl over my shoulders. "Ling Shi, the air conditioning is a bit strong in here. Don't catch a chill." Seeing this scene, what else didn't he understand? Now I was utterly disgusted with him, and Su Shenyi had also found her own path in abandoning his toxic narrative. Later, when Chen Wei faced a public trial for his role in the fraudulent schemes, Su Shenyi and I also watched the news coverage. Seeing us in the crowd, Chen Wei smiled bitterly and a tear fell. When the guilty verdict was read, I heard him murmur, "Ling Shi, if only I hadn't been so greedy and arrogant back then." I sighed helplessly, not for him, but because Su Shenyi was unsettled by the intense media scrutiny and turned to lean her head on my shoulder briefly. "I can't understand why you insisted on coming to watch if it makes you so uncomfortable," I said softly. In the second year of Director Fong's, now CEO Fong's, tenure, he used firm and just methods to clean up the corporation. The one who bore the brunt was a corrupt senior vice president, Wang Jing, who was also secretly Su Shenyi's biological father. As a female lead worthy of a torturous story, Su Shenyi's background was naturally not simple. Her mother was deceived and abandoned by a wealthy, married man, single-handedly giving birth to and raising her with great difficulty, only to die from the strain and lack of good medical care. She had followed Chen Wei into the city to seek out that wretched, heartless father, only to find he was a powerful executive with a high position and authority. Not only did he refuse to acknowledge her, he wanted to eliminate her to protect his reputation. Her heart had to endure and keep silent, initially viewing Chen Wei as her lifeline, wanting to use his influence to eventually expose her biological father and avenge her mother. The day Wang Jing was convicted, Su Shenyi pulled me to drink tea with her until midnight. She cried, then laughed, then cried. Finally, she was able to sleep peacefully. Another spring arrived. Under Dr. Wei's treatment, CEO Fong no longer needed his wheelchair for daily mobility, his health gradually improving until he was little different from an ordinary person. He devoted himself to the company's affairs with broad vision, determined to steer the conglomerate with integrity and innovation. I was content to serve officially on the board, appointed as a senior vice president of strategy, becoming one of the first women in the company's history to hold such a position.
working alongside him to secure the company's future. Su Shenyi was awarded a significant settlement from her father's seized assets and took Dr. Wei as her mentor, wishing to travel and study with him, together using medicine and wellness knowledge to help communities in need. The day she left the city, I rose very early to personally escort her to the airport. The young lady, now wearing practical and elegant travel clothes, her black hair tied up simply, a bright, carefree smile blooming on that exquisite face. Somehow, this small, fragile white flower from before had become the bright moon in the sky, confident and self-assured. "Take care, Lingxi." Following the sound of her final farewell fading, her figure dissolved into the crowd at the gate. I tidied my business suit. Now the corporation is stable and prosperous. You also don't need to worry or toil over the past anymore. We will definitely meet again. True empowerment comes from choosing your own path, rather than defining yourself through others' affections. Lingxi's transformation from a love-struck rival to a capable leader illustrates that self-worth shouldn't depend on romantic validation. By rejecting the toxic cycle of competing for Chenwei's attention, she discovered her political acumen and forged a genuine friendship with Su Shenyi. The story demonstrates that love without respect is merely possession, while authentic relationships, romantic or platonic, require mutual understanding and support for each other's growth. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from situations that diminish your potential and choosing ambition over attachment. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.